Well, good morning, and welcome to the Morning Report. My name is Willie Lawson. Morning Report is a production of fightbackmedia.com, 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 and fightbackmediatv.com. We appreciate you being here with us today. It's glorious, glorious Tuesday. It is the 10th of January, and it's nice out. It's like 64 and sunny. It's beautiful. I just came back from a short walk with the wife, and looking forward to a fantastic day. I'm gonna tell you, the first day back yesterday after being on break was it's okay, but it did take a little bit to you know grease the wheels and get back into the groove. But it actually turned out to be, for all sorts of reasons, especially here in the Lawson household, was really good, really good. I got some really good news, and so excited about what's going to happen and how much more good news we're going to get. I'm expecting good news. All right. Interesting doings in the House of Representatives that we'll talk about. Some rules changes. Now, before you get excited about rules changes, remember, these people always are able to suspend the rules on things. They're always able to suspend the rules. So let's not get all excited about rules changes, but it's a first step for sure. A lot of times we talk about socialism, and then the left looks at us like, well, there is socialism in America, and we're going to talk about where it's now being, if not codified, it is showing up in one of our Midwestern states in a real way. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Diamond of Diamond and Silk passed away. And we here at Fight Back Media and the Morning Report send our condolences to the friends and family of Diamond and Silk. She passed away a couple of days ago, and just suddenly, out of nowhere, there seems to be a lot of that going on. So again, we send our condolences out to her family and her friends. Just remember, folks, we're not here on this rock zipping around the sun for very long. The Bible says that we are but a vapor. Doesn't take very long, before we know it. I used to tell my students, about things that matter. Things that don't matter is that there are rocks in your front yard, little rocks in your front yard, that if left undisturbed, they'll be here when you got here to this world, and they'll be here when you leave this world, and they won't even notice that you were here. So not everything that happens is important. Not everything that happens deserves your full attention. So again, our condolences. All right, we're gonna take a little break. We're back with more of the program right after these messages. Well, hey everybody, my name is Willie Lawson, and you guys know that I do a lot of stuff on the internet. And you may think, with what's happening on Twitter and what's happening on Facebook and what happened to Parler, that the mainstream social media sources are really trying to rid themselves of conservative voices. And you'd be right. They most certainly are. Um, but you know what? It isn't as bad as you think it is. It's worse. But there are people who are willing to be platformed for free speech. One of those one of those places is freedomforum.website. Freedomforum.website. You can go there and speak your mind. So come join us. Enjoy the freedom. Enjoy the fun. If you are a true blue conservative, small businesses are near and dear to your heart. They are the lifeblood of our life and economy. I believe this, and that's why my florist is not a website or phone number. My florist is Bloomingdale's Flower Shop, Tampa's premier flower shop. At 11618 North Florida Avenue here in Tampa, Florida, and at 6835 State Road 54 in Newport Richey. Call Christine at 813-933-1942 and at 727-232-6900. She can also be reached on the web at www.bloomingdays.com. One of the things that I get asked most is where can I get information that is not tainted with liberal bias, especially here in the Tampa Bay area. Well, now I have the answer. tbctampa.com, a website by and for Tampa area conservatives. Tampa's leading conservative voices speak freely at tbctampa.com, and you can too. So join the fun and enjoy the freedom at tbctampa.com. My name is Willie Lawson, and this is the Morning Report. All right, we're back. Thank you ever so much. It took 90 years. The socialism has made a return. It's back in the Wisconsin legislature. Now, I'm going to talk to our friend Paul Swanson, who's up in Wisconsin today, about the impact, if any, this is having from the state down to the local parties on the local stuff going on. But it's been 90 years of socialism, but socialism is back in the Wisconsin legislature. After taking their oaths of office on Tuesday, which I'm sure included an oath to uphold the Constitution of Wisconsin and the Constitution of the United States. I'm pretty sure that probably it. Two freshman assembly members made it their first order of business to revive a socialist caucus that has been dormant since the 1930s. The self-identified Democratic Socialists, we know there's no such thing, right? Representative Ryan Clancy and Darren Madison plan to hold their own meetings to advance their policy goals while caucusing with Assembly Democrats. Yeah, of course. In the Republican-controlled legislature, however, the Socialist Caucus is a minority within a minority, and it's highly unlikely that either Democrats or the new caucus will have their way on most issues. Clancy, a Milwaukee County supervisor, was still optimistic about bringing to the assembly ideas he has successfully pushed for at the local level, such as guaranteed counsel for tenants facing eviction. The things that we can get done are the things which are common sense and have not been looked at as bipartisan fights, he said. But Republicans don't see it that way. Socialism has failed everywhere in the world as have been tried. Republican Majority Leader Tyler August said, "It's not what makes our country great." Clancy and Madison both hail from districts in Milwaukee, surprise, surprise, a city with one of the most prominent socialist movements in the nation's history. In 1910, during socialism's heyday in the United States, Milwaukee sent the first socialists to Congress and was the first major American city to elect a socialist mayor. 2 years later, it took Democrats and Republicans joining forces behind a single candidate to oust Mayor Emil Seidel, who went on to run for vice president on the socialist ticket. Cities from Reading, Pennsylvania, cities from Reading, Pennsylvania to cities on the West Coast had prominent socialist politicians. But even in that landscape, Milwaukee stood out, as Philip Rocco, a professor of political science from Marquette University in Milwaukee. Socialist politicians sat in the Wisconsin legislature as early as 1878, according to the Legislative Reference Bureau. But most socialist state lawmakers held office between 1917 and 1935, when the first Socialist Caucus appeared. Even after socialism fell under the same McCarthy-era stigma as communism during the 1950s, its visibility persisted in Milwaukee. Mayor Dan Hone, the city's second socialist mayor, held the position for 24 years after taking office in 1916. The third and final socialist mayor, Frank Ziegler, left office in 1960 after serving 3 terms that overlapped with Wisconsin Senator Joseph McCarthy's notorious anti-communist campaign. It's a history Madison and Clancy have embraced, identifying as sewer socialists in their campaign and touting endorsements from the Milwaukee chapter of Democratic Socialists of America. They say, "We want to continue this legacy and redefine what it means to be socialist in the state of Wisconsin." Branding themselves as socialists hasn't always been easy. Madison and Clancy said, especially on the campaign trail, where socialism has become a dirty word, as it should, even in the Democratic stronghold of Milwaukee, where Clancy ran unopposed. I've said forever, nobody should run unopposed. And Madison only challenger was a partisan primary. The socialist label was often a tough sell to voters. There are folks who were really close to me and cared about me and knew that carrying that label would put a target on my back. They heavily encouraged me, don't do it, but a socialist internally, but don't push out that into the world. Madison and Clancy's victories mirror a national resurgence in the Democratic Socialism's popularity over the past decade, with Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez serving as longtime stalwarts of the movement. Rocco said Milwaukee is once again uniquely a fertile ground for the ideology. So when they tell us that these things aren't real, they tell us that we are just xenophobes, they tell us that, we're just haters, and we are, I don't know, brainwashed by whomever. Well, what we know is, or we should know, that's not the truth. It's not the truth. Truth is that these movements are still alive. I said this when I started this program way back in, 2008. Just because, the Soviet Union is gone doesn't mean that communism is. Doesn't mean that socialism is. Because there are ideas that don't die. They are ideas that don't die. They stay, and especially if you talk about the university system that promulgates these ideas and keeps shoring them up as viable alternatives to society, and ignores the amount of death that is associated with them. So there are young skulls full of mushes. Young skulls full of mush. That's what I was trying to get at. Thank you, Rush Limbaugh. We missed you. These young skulls full of mush that take this in and they believe that this is some sort of again viable solution for society, when truly it is not. Again, the left is really good at dressing something up, renaming it, rebranding it, shoving it back out there. So when you peel it open, it's the same crap sandwich that it was before. The difference now is that they have you embarrassed enough and bully you enough to not to admit that you open it up. It's the same crap sandwich that there was before. Because if you say that, it's sort of an emperor's new clothes thing. You're supposed to open it and go, "Oh, it's beautiful." And if you open it up and say, "Oh, it's a crap sandwich," then you are not smart. You're not erudite. You're not accepting. You're not you're not a good person. So what they're pushing in the Wisconsin state legislature, this Madison and Clancy guy, is the same crap sandwich that has killed millions of people around the world historically. Republicans and Democrats in Wisconsin, it's going to be up to you to crush it again. All right, we're back right after these messages. So is it okay now, because it was, during the Trump administration, it is okay to talk about the president's
yeah, we talked about mental health elderly, so let's talk about this guy's mental health.
The president's mental acuity, because there's sometimes where it seems to be lacking. Have you seen?
Sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes it's especially bad. I'm talking about sometimes it's like really bad. Like, have you seen the picture?
I was told not to take any questions.
I was told not to take any questions. They're going to be mad at me.
They're going to be mad at me.
Mr.
President, are you the president, or were you five?
You see, what I want. See, the next question is, excuse me,
I was told to call on what you call for NBC. Who's telling you to call on?
That's the question that we ought to be asking. Who's telling you this?
I don't understand why nobody won't ask that question.
Is Jen Psaki actually the president?
Who's telling you to call on these people in the media?
Is Jen Psaki actually the president?
Probably so.
Welcome back. The latest Twitter files detail shows the social media giant responded to complaints from former FDA Commissioner Scott Gottlieb, a senior board member at Pfizer, over a post that he objected to on the site. As reported by former New York Times writer and pandemia author Alex Bringerson, Gottlieb took issue with a post from Dr. Brett Ginor, former FDA acting commissioner, calling on the White House to follow the science and exempt those from that with natural immunity from vaccine mandates. This is what Dr. Brett said. Listen, just exempt people who have natural immunity. Just leave them alone from vaccine mandates. Gottlieb's objection came despite the fact that Dr. Brett also encouraged those who did not have natural immunity to go get vaccinated. what he said simply was that people who have natural immunity, as they have figured out, blood types or whatever, don't, just don't make them do it. But if you don't have natural immunity, you should get vaccinated. That's what Dr. Brett says. Janori is his name, Dr. Brett Janori. However, Gottlieb said no, because if he said what Gottlieb was worried about is by suggesting that some people might not need COVID vaccination, which is true, the tweet could raise questions about the shot, because the idea is they didn't want any questions, no questions. When they don't want questions, that's when you question. Besides being a former FDA commissioner, a CNBC contributor, and a prominent voice on COVID public policy, Gottlieb was a senior board member at Pfizer. Conflict of interest? You bet your sweet ass. Which depended on the mRNA jab for almost half of its $81 billion in sales in 2021. $81 billion in 1 year. Pfizer paid Gottlieb $365,000 for his work that year. So while he's a CNBC contributor, a FDA commissioner, and of course a prominent voice on COVID public policy, he was getting paid by Pfizer. Take this, to the tune of over $250,000 for that 1 year. So of course his job was to get out there and crush anything that might have ended the gravy train or slowed the gravy train down. So Gottlieb stepped in, emailing Todd O'Boyle, who was a top lobbyist in Twitter's Washington office, who was also Twitter's point contact with the White House. He said this: the post was corrosive, Gottlieb wrote. He worried that it would end up going viral and driving news coverage. Well, he was worried about that people would find out and say, hey, well, not everybody needs to take the vaccine. So through this system called Jira, which is an internal system that Twitter used to manage complaints, O'Boyle forwarded Gottlieb's email to Twitter's strategic response team. That group was responsible for handling concerns from the company's most important employees and users, because you or I are not one of Twitter's most important users. We are not. We're plebes. Plebes, I tell you. We are plebes. We do not matter. A strategic response analyst quickly found the tweet did not violate any of the company's misinformation rules. Yet Twitter still wound up flagging the tweet anyway, putting a misleading tag on it and preventing almost anyone from seeing it. It remained tagged, even though several large studies have confirmed the truth of his words. Another tweet from vaccine skeptic Justin Hart caught Gottlieb's attention the week after, which discussed the COVID risks to children. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but a viral pathogen with a child mortality rate of greater or less than 0 has cost our children nearly 3 years of schooling, Hart wrote. As it was explained, it's unclear which part of the tweet he objected to, but it came ahead of the release of the Pfizer shot for kids, 5 to 11. Twitter didn't take any action. This all comes as Gottlieb was also pressuring the site to censor Berenson, which he reported last year based on Twitter's documents provided to him prior to Elon taking over as part of his lawsuit against the company. Gottlieb then claimed that during an appearance on CNBC, where he is a contributor, that he pressured Twitter to take action against Rinson over safety concerns for vaccine advocates. He said this: "I'm concerned about the debate being made," Gottlieb said. "I'm concerned about physical threats and being made for people's safety." Nobody, no one was threatening anybody physically or taking the vaccine, not taking it. Well, we were people who weren't taking the vaccine. We were kind of threatened, or giving the vaccine to their children if that's what they want to do. There was no such thing going on. So on Twitter, Gottlieb followed up with, "Respectful debate and dialogue is one thing. It should be encouraged and protected, but there is no place for targeted harassment and misleading dialogue, which instigate a small but persuadable group of people to make targeted and dangerous threats." This is such gaslighting. I even hate that phrase, but this is such BS that they're trying to get into the atmosphere. That is just that it is disgusting. Nobody was going to beat anybody up, hurt anybody for taking a vaccine, taking the shot. They just weren't going to do it themselves. And that was the argument all along. You do whatever you want to do. I don't think it's a good idea, but you please, you just do whatever you want to do. He was just, of course, Gottlieb was just worried about his pocketbook, worried about his money. $365 million or something like that, right? He was just worried about his money. That's all he was worried about. I mean, let's just be real. The dude was just worried about his money. That's it. That's it. That's it. Let's get real. Pfizer made $81 billion in 2021. And half of it, vaccines. Now, and this is interesting always. I always think it's interesting because people will go, well, the vaccine is free. It doesn't cost anything, just take it, it's free. Nothing's free. First of all, and I know, once you get a little of this on your face, in your head, on your eyebrows, and other places, your nose, your ears, well, is that nothing's free. Somebody's always paying for it. And if you don't think you're paying for it, you probably are, right? You probably are. You just can't see it. But you're paying for it. To the tune of at least $40 billion going to Pfizer. $40 billion. You think $40 billion could help solve the water problems that's happening in some of our major cities? $40 billion? You think? Think maybe yes. Could go a long way to solving some of the water, the communities that have poisonous water. And not just bringing in a whole bunch of Zephyr Hills water, Avion water to those communities, actually fixing what's wrong with their water supply. Instead of doing what we saw happen. All right, folks, take a little break. We'll be back with more of the program right after these messages. Well, hey everybody, my name is Willie Lawson, and you guys know that I do a lot of stuff on the internet. And you may think with what's happening on Twitter and what's happening on Facebook and what happened to Parler that the mainstream social media sources are really trying to rid themselves of conservative voices. And you'd be right. They most certainly are. But you know what? It isn't as bad as you think it is. It's worse. But there are people who are willing to be platformed for free speech. One of those places is freedomforum.website. freedomforum.website. You can go there and speak your mind. So come join us. Enjoy the freedom. Enjoy the fun. If you are a true blue conservative, small businesses are near and dear to your heart. They are the lifeblood of our life and economy.
I believe this, and that's why my florist is not a website or a phone number. My florist is Bloomingdale's Flower Shop, Tampa's premier flower shop. At 11618 North Florida Avenue here in Tampa, Florida, and at 6835 State Road 54 in Newport Richey. Call Christine at 813-933-1942 and at 727-232-6900. She can also be reached on the web at www.bloomingdays.com. One of the things that I get asked most is where can I get information that is not tainted with liberal bias, especially here in the Tampa Bay area. Well, now I have the answer. tbctampa.com, a website by and for Tampa area conservatives. Tampa's leading conservative voices speak freely at tbctampa.com, and you can too. So join the fun and enjoy the freedom at tbctampa.com. My name is Willie Lawson, and this is the Morning Report.
All right, welcome back. My name is Willie Lawson. This is the Morning Report. The Morning Report is a production of fightbackmedia.com, 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 and fightbackmediatv.com. Trust that you are well this glorious Tuesday morning. The temperature has risen another 3 degrees since we started. So it's 67 degrees out there and sunny. There's white wispy clouds in the sky. It's very nice. It's just very, very nice. There's a little breeze. So if you're like me, if you're a Florida kid and you're get a little chilly on your skin, just a very light sweater or a very light sweatshirt get you through. It's beautiful. Get that sunshine on your skin meat. Good stuff. Vitamin D is good. I hear that. I hear vitamin D is good. I hear that there's some sicknesses that you can fend off with a little vitamin D, especially the kind that comes from God. Just saying. All right, the House of Representatives is now led by Speaker of the House Kevin McCarthy, the Republican from California. Gone through that. They convened on Monday evening to consider the rules package for the new Congress, a resolution that included many of the concessions demanded by conservative members of the House Republican Conference. Despite the Republicans' narrow majority, the rules package for the 118th Congress was passed 220 to 213, the first vote without rampant proxy voting in years. Proxy voting was this whole, the House is too dangerous to go to, so I'm going to send in my vote and stay in my basement because I don't want to get COVID. Because that's the responsible thing to do. No, the responsible thing to do if you are in the House of Representatives is to go to work. Yes. Let me tell you, it may not be safe. I'm going ahead and give you that. It might not be. It may be dangerous. It may be. I don't ever think it was. It might be. But proxy voting was never supposed to happen. On a House floor that was much more at ease than the overnight hours last Friday and Saturday. Everybody, it was a lot more chill there. There was nobody threatening to beat anybody up, so that's a good thing. Although, if it comes down to that, if somebody says slaps you in the face with the glove and go, "I'll see you on the field of honor, sir." So ahead of the vote, the GOP conference chair at least Stefanik, I always have trouble saying her name, heralded the negotiated rules packages as a set of changes that will, quote, restore the people's house. I believe that is hyperbolic. By adding more transparency and bringing key conservative pieces of legislation to the floor for the for votes as Republicans now work towards delivering their commitment to the America Pledge. Now, she tweeted this today. The Republicans will vote on a rules package that will restore the people's house by first ending proxy voting, going back to the Constitution, no proxy vote, mandating at least 72 hours, and for those of us who went to public school, that's 3 days after release of bill text before a final vote. So when they release the bill text, according to the rules, which I tell you they can suspend it anytime they get ready. They can vote to suspend the rules anytime they get ready. So I have rules. Good question. That there needs to be 72 hours, 3 days before a final vote. Before a final vote. Now, could they have other voting in, that isn't a final vote? Sure. Sure. Can they move the thing along? Yes. They just have to wait 72 hours before the final vote. Let's just say this is a start. This is the start of an idea. This isn't actually a start of a methodology yet. The third one that you mentioned, establishing oversight plans to hold the Biden administration accountable. Is that a rule? Anyway, Town Hall earlier reported on more provisions that will bring significant changes to the House of Representatives. Let's go ahead and pull some of those up here. In addition to the rules package, this provides for bills to rescind the certain balances made available to the IRS. Now, the certain balances made to the IRS were the money to hire the 87,000 new IRS agents. Now, the IRS can still hire them. They just have to find some other way to pay for them, which means they probably won't hire them, right? Or they'll just pull money, the bureaucrats will pull money from somewhere else, or there'll be an executive order. Okay. Another one of those things, authorize the Secretary of Homeland Security to suspend the entry of aliens. Now, will this particular Secretary of Homeland Security suspend the entrance of aliens? No. To prohibit the Secretary of Energy from sending petroleum products from the strategic reserve to China. So we shouldn't be sending our petroleum products from the strategic petroleum reserve to China. No, we shouldn't. Are we going to stop? The House says no. Are there ways around that? You bet your sweet ass. To amend the Omnibus Crime Control and Safe Streets Act to direct district attorneys and prosecutors' offices to report to the Attorney General. So all these district attorneys and prosecutors' offices now have to report to the Attorney General. It's a way to make a paper trail. To require the National Instant Criminal Background Check System to notify U.S. Immigration and Custom Enforcement and the relevant state and local law enforcement agencies whenever information available to the system indicates that a person illegally or unlawfully in the United States may be attempting to receive a firearm. So when they try to go to the firearm show at the fair and try to get a pew pew, that system automatically should notify public law enforcement, right? Oh, and to prohibit taxpayer-funded abortions. Yes, good idea. is it going to be done? See, that's the thing. Is there any enforcement? To amend Title 18 U.S. Code to prohibit healthcare practitioners from failing to exercise a proper degree of care in case of a child who survives an abortion or attempted abortions. So if a child somehow survives an abortion and they just let the child die, like, Dr. What's his face, Dr. Mingala, then we should, put him in jail for murder. What's more, rather than the bloated omnibus bill process, the most recent saw a $1.7 trillion spent on a 4,100 page piece of legislation without time for members to read the full text. That's when you got to be 3 days. Now, I don't know if you read 4,000 pages in 3 days either, frankly. I think that's all they could do. 4,100 pages needs to be read over a couple of months. 4,100 pages. Think about the biggest novel you've ever read for school or for fun. Some of those, books, those Harry Potter books were 1,000 pages, 700 pages. 4,100 pages. Now, if you just read them, how much would you retain? I think 30 days. I think it should be probably what needs to happen is that there needs to be a rule, a one subject, one bill rule. That the bill only covers one thing. Nothing else in there. One thing. So if you want to name a post office, that's the only thing on that bill. There isn't any funding for anything connected to that bill of naming a post office. If you want to fund, I don't know, if you want to fund NASA, there isn't anything attached to that. There's no military funding to that. There's no funding for a midnight basketball attached to that. Nothing. One thing. One thing. Now, if you have to give legislators more leeway in the number of bills that they can file, because that's part of the problem too, then do that. One subject, one item, one bill. So when Bill, I'm just a bill is sitting on Capitol Hill steps, he isn't bloated because he's laying there, he's got all these things, these attachments on him. I was just a bill on Capitol Hill, but then I got all these other things I got to pull along with me. Right? That shouldn't happen. All right. What do you think? Write down in the comments below. Thank you again for coming back to the morning report here on Fight Back Media. We appreciate you. So until we see you again, go out there and learn something, love somebody, and for goodness sakes, y'all take care of yourself. We will see you when we see you. Bye-bye now.